So today, where does the women population stand in Tunisia? Today, what rights do they have?
Basically, women they have the same rights, but now, like since the election and since the Islamic Party won like the majority seats, we've been even afraid before this ruling party, this Islamic Party would rule the country, that they would take out some of our rights already existing, but they were repeatedly promising that we will treat women equal, we will not force veil, we will keep all those freedom and add to it. What happened after is that many things have been discussed, like Sharia, like women veiling women, and a lot of harassment in the street with the rising of, like, because of the freedom of religion. So many of them faces that we've never seen on the street, and a lot of extremists. So we've never seen Salafists on the street in Tunisia. Now they have the freedom of religion. So we have been on a lot of harassment on the street of women not accepted in society that way they wanted to be accepted. I think now women are fighting for their rights, to keep the rights we already have. But I hope that we already guaranteeing these rights. We want to work on equal inheritance. We want to work on education for girls. We want to move on to next steps and not to go back to women freedom of wearing whatever she wants or holding whatever position she wants.
When you were talking about the uprising itself, it seemed that during the uprising, during the Tunisian revolution, the political and religious divides had been transcended, that somehow the people had united in overthrowing the government. How did that happen? And then can you talk a little bit about how now those divides are appearing again?
Yeah, mainly a lot of people say it's a revolution made by youth, and it's true. Revolution was made by young people who, because even that vendor who was a spark of revolution, he was 96 or 99 or 26 or 29 years old. So he was young, and then the people who supported him at first and went in support of his case were young people, and then the people who took pictures and posted on Facebook, they were young people. So the whole movement was made by youth. And then after a couple of days, the organized big organization and the intellectuals started supporting young people. So labor union joined the movement. Lawyers went out to the street for the first time. It's a huge step for them to go in their attire and have march. And artists and journalists and a lot of portion of society joined. But it was the largest population was youth, because the simple reason, because youth, we had a huge number of graduate students who are not working, and so the problem were mainly youth rights, and there was no religious orientation. Even the opposition, political party opposition, joined the movement later, but we've never seen any religious groups who went to the street for a cause of religion or something like that. Never. It was all about civil rights or liberties. Now that continued till we had a first provisional government, then a second provisional government, and that second provisional government started organizing the elections. There, when political parties started emerging, the debate shifted from the goals of revolution, where economy, employment and stuff, to Sharia and Islam. And by the coming election, by the dates of the election, the campaigns of political parties mainly were divided into either you vote for Islam, religion, or you vote for secularism and liberty, which wasn't that way. And this is, I think, one of the reasons why Islamic Party took a majority of seats, because they used religion and their victimhood under the regime, being oppressed from practicing religion, to gain a lot of votes. And a lot of people were frustrated after that, and reminding the country that the goal of revolution wasn't have a religious state or not. It was about solving all these problems economically, socially, education, and all these reforms that we need. And the debate totally shifted into revolution, into religion.
What were the factors that united people of all educational status and of all ages during the uprising?
As I said, many things. There were different...
Now, I know you talked about the unemployment crisis and all these different issues that people have to deal with, and that's why they became angry. But I think what I'm really trying to get at is what kind of organizing went into this, what kind of social media, what kind of local groundwork went into uniting people from different walks of life.
Yeah, mainly young people started over, and young people are the majority were cyber activists on social media. And then we had civil society groups. So we had starting up with young people and cyber activists, and then social civil society groups who were already organized institutions. So the mobilization was on Facebook by those social media activists, but then on the ground, true, there were a lot of people and young people, but it started being organized and mobilized when the civil society groups starting being included or part of the movement. So there were a point when it was all different ages, all different middle class, lower class, or different portions of society. They were all, even artists and even people who had like their parents exiled, those political thinkers who have never imagined they would stand one day and speak out. At some point on the day of the fall of dictatorship, all portions of society were on the streets.
Has there been any economic transformation with this new political party in place?
I don't think so, because it's still the same problems of unemployment, and if it was resolved, we wouldn't see people still protesting on the street after more than a year. And I think it's the same problem. We are dependent on other people's economy. So even now with the cooperation with the West, it's not actually pushing the country into economic prosperity, but putting the country into debt. And this government, it's not investing in the country as economy, regardless of any ruling party. It's dealing government to government cooperation. So even what I expected after revolution to have help from Europe and the West, I expected direct investment in the country, bringing investment into the country to open companies and creating market and jobs. But what happened is that it was government-to-government relationships and donations or putting in debt, or it wasn't what we expected to have, and still the same problem of regional disparities. It's the marginalized region still marginalized, and the rich region and prestigious still getting more prestigious.
And now you mentioned fleetingly about depending on other nations and that being a root cause of the economic hardships that are going on in Tunisia. Can you tell us more about that?
I mean by dependent is that we are not building our own economy. We're just depending on other people's economy. And the investment made, it's the same when it was before revolution. They were made an investment totally monopolized by the family. So there were no private sector really growing into it. It was all public. And when you go to the market to have a job, you don't find a lot of choices. You just find the public service because all the market is owned by the ruling family. Now, after revolution, they didn't focus on the private sector, which I think would bring prosperity to the country. And a lot of young people would work on company investing, foreign investors. Now, something else is that by putting in front Sharia and Islam and deviating from the goals of revolution, the investors are not coming anyway. It's more threatening investment. Especially last summer, our economy is based on tourism, and with all the events we had, and attacks and protests and riots and strikes, the tourism went down really badly in all of the years that we've seen.
Now let's talk about you coming to USA and your perception of some of the issues here in this country. As a Tunisian activist, how did you look at the Occupy Wall Street?
Oh, I was here last year during the Occupy Wall Street. I totally hated this statement of from Tahrir Square to Occupy Wall Street, because there is no comparison. There is no comparison between Middle Eastern countries and democracies and Western countries. I know that in every nation there are a lot of suffering. I know that problems, you cannot find an ideal nation with no problems. But while the US is having already freedom of expression, freedom of religion, those countries in the Middle East are still fighting for speaking their minds. And this is why there is no comparison between both. We can go and protest, and actually in the US, there is a right to go assemble and protest. I didn't get the point of Wall Street. I was supportive of any people standing up for their rights. That's good. But what I think, even when I went there, I see people who were not united. And this is maybe what lacks Wall Street. They were not united. They would just come there because somebody told them to go there. And if you ask them what's your demands, either would be very, very specific and selfish demand, or they wouldn't know why. What happened in the Middle East, it was a union of people who knew what they want and how to get there. And we wrote our demands on our, slogans. We knew what we wanted. But in Wall Street, and in terms even of organization, I don't know what social media, how they use social media, but in terms even of organizing and mobilizing people, it was so different. It wasn't the same.
You talked about freedom of expression and democracy in America. What do you, for example, think about the statistics that came out from Pew Research poll, and that pointed out that 54% of Americans would prefer a stable government in Middle East over democracy?
Stable meaning any kind of government, including dictatorships, over an unstable democracy.
So this is a polling of ordinary people.
Of Americans.
It was a polling of ordinary American citizens asking if they had the choice, what they think would be more beneficial to the United States, or what they would prefer?
What they would prefer.
Yeah, what they would prefer given governments in the Middle East. Would you rather there be a dictator that kept the country stable, or would you rather have a democratically elected government in that country? And 54% chose
stable dictatorship.
Yeah.
That's really surprising to me, because as we were talking about Wall Street, all Tunisians were very supportive of Wall Street, and we even attacked Obama's official Facebook, if you've heard of that. All Tunisians attacked the page on when violence started going on with the police, and they made a lot of fun of the situation that you are a democracy, how could you do that? Now I'm very surprised about that. I would expect that from the government, because the Western government have been supporting dictatorships in the Middle East, but I would expect people to say, no, we want freedom for those people, not stable dictatorship. I'm totally surprised.